Fanny was walking home with soy milk and fried dough sticks in hand when she spotted the shop. Among the row of storefronts, it wasn't particularly eye-catching, yet somehow, her gaze was drawn to it immediately. Its facade was modest, painted in a deep vermilion. Only one door was ajar, its brass knocker dulled by rust. Above the entrance hung a small wooden plaque with delicate script that read, "Pawn Shop of Desire." The morning sunlight bathed the words in a golden hue, casting a shimmer like fragments of silver. Fanny sighed inwardly. The shop front looks decent, but the name? Pawn Shop of Desire? It's trashy and borderline inappropriate. A young woman strolled gracefully out of the shop, smiling warmly at Fanny. This little shop only appears to those destined to find it. Since you noticed it right away, why not come in and have a look, sis? The woman wasn't particularly striking, but had an air of mischief in her lively eyes. Much like the shop itself, she wasn't someone you'd notice in a crowd. But once you did, you couldn't resist her charm. It was as if every fiber of Fanny's being demanded she step inside. Bewildered by her own compulsion, she followed the woman in. Inside, the shop was empty except for a single table, chair, teapot, and cup. A pot of purple-leafed grass sat atop the table, looking vibrant and inviting. Fanny asked skeptically, "You don't sell adult products here, do you?" The woman covered her mouth with her hand, laughing silently. She picked up the teapot, pouring hot water into a glass cup. Her voice was soft and melodic. Women in this world brim with emotion. Too much, and it becomes fragile. Desire, too little, and life grows dull. She lifted the glass and offered it to Fanny. "I sell forget-me-not water, a cure for excess sentiment and insufficient desire." Fanny chuckled, shaking her head. "Forget-me-not water? More like bottled tap water." The woman pouted playfully. "Oh, sis, does it matter what you call it? Forget-me-not or tap water. Just humor me and let me make my first sale today." Before Fanny could respond, her phone buzzed. She answered, only to be greeted by Li Si's angry roar. "Where the hell are you? Getting breakfast takes you all morning? You dead or something?" The voice was like a bucket of ice water poured over her. Mechanically, Fanny hung up and turned to leave. As she walked out, she muttered, "Girl, people around here are sharp. Stick to honest business and stop the cryptic nonsense." She had already gone quite a distance when she faintly heard the woman's soft voice, "My name is Xiaoqi." As soon as Fanny opened the door to her home, a pillow came flying at her face. Li Si's shout followed close behind. "Took you long enough. Did you fly to heaven to buy breakfast?" She dodged the pillow without a word, set the soy milk and fried dough sticks on the table, and went to the kitchen to prepare a couple of side dishes and reheat some steamed buns. Finally, she brought everything to the table. She sat down first, avoiding Li Si's gaze as she sipped the soy milk. Li Si stomped over, his chair scraping noisily against the floor. Not wanting to share the same table with him for long, Fanny sped up her eating. But in her haste, a piece of bun lodged in her throat, causing her to hiccup. Li Si slammed his bowl down on the table. "Gross. Can't you even eat like a normal person? First a hiccup. What's next, farting?" Fanny furrowed her brow, but still didn't respond. Her silence only fueled Li Si's anger. He knocked the chopsticks from her hand and bellowed, "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf or just mute? Why do you always look half dead?" Fanny felt exhaustion seep through her bones. A hiccup turned into this? No one would believe it. But in her home, such things happened. She gave up eating, picking up her bowl and heading for the kitchen. Li Si kicked his chair aside and grabbed his keys, hurling one last insult as he stormed out. "I must have been blind to marry a country bumpkin like you. Divorce isn't an option, and I come home just to see your damn sulky face." The words country bumpkin struck her like a hammer, leaving her stunned. Fanny was indeed from the countryside. Her parents had drained their resources to send her and her sister to college, leaving their family destitute. But thanks to her sweet looks, sincere demeanor, and degree from a prestigious university, She secured a decent job in a major city's foreign company. When she reached the age for marriage, she was determined to find a local husband. However, reality is often cruel. Her boss had appreciated her work and introduced her to his son. But after one meeting, the son ghosted her. Embarrassed, her boss explained, he prefers local girls. She understood. Who wouldn't want stability in their life? She didn't want to marry someone from another city either. Two outsiders struggling together in a metropolis. How long would it take to secure a place to call home? Most migrants carried the weight of their entire family's expectations. Eventually, she was introduced to Lee Si. The matchmaker hesitated before saying, he's got a good job as a local and his family owns 2 apartments. Once you have kids, he'll add your name to one of the properties. But he does have type 1 diabetes, so you'll need to be patient with him. To her, health issues didn't matter much. Who goes through life without some ailment? Besides, the promise of property was irresistible. Adding her name after having a child seemed inevitable. The day after the argument over breakfast, Lee Si didn't come home until late the next night. As soon as he arrived, he began packing his clothes. Acting nonchalant, he said, "If my dad asks, just tell him I'm going to the grasslands with some friends." A storm of curses churned in Fan Yi's mind. Friends? More like a mistress. Flipping through a magazine, she asked, "When is your dad going to pay my credit card bill this month?" Lee Si slung a bag of clothes over his shoulder and walked toward the door. "My dad's paying your credit card, so why are you asking me?" Fan Yi boiled with anger and grabbed his arm. "My credit card debt? The money went to your stock trading, your gambling, and your mistresses. Who else am I supposed to ask? Your dad? It's been 2 months with no payments. Is anyone in the Lee family even human?" Lee Si kicked her hard in the stomach and shouted, "Let go." Clutching her belly in pain, she held onto his collar and screamed, "You're not leaving until you give me an explanation." Lee Si's eyes filled with disgust. He dropped his bag and grabbed her neck. "Look at your dead face. You want a house? Money? Go earn it yourself." "Yeah, I'm keeping a mistress, gambling, using your borrowed money. You deserve it." He shoved her away as she gasped for air, barely able to breathe, and stormed out. Fan Yi staggered after him, but his car sped off, leaving her standing in the cold wind. Through the window, she caught a glimpse of a woman in the passenger seat, her pale hands waving dismissively. The chill snapped her back to reality. Across the street, the pawn shop of Desires glowed faintly, and Xiaoqi stood at the door, holding a cup of water. Fan Yi hurried over and down the water in one gulp. "Only those with unsettled desires can see my shop," Xiaoqi said in a soft yet penetrating voice. "Unsettled desires?" Fan Yi asked, bewildered. "Humans have 7 emotions: joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hatred, and desire. And they have 7 physical cravings: sight, sound, scent, taste, touch, body, and mind. I'll trade this cup of water for your excess fear." "My fear?" "You fear, so you're weak," Xiaoqi said with a radiant smile, dimples appearing faintly. "You fear being homeless, hungry. You fear a future worse than the present. Drink this water. Across the forgetting river, there's no memory. Atop the bridge of regret, there's no sorrow." A few days later, when Lee Si returned home, something felt off. The apartment was a mess. Fan Yi, wearing an elegant Burberry suit and flawless makeup, sat at the table sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Lee Si snapped. "You're drowning in debt, and you're wearing expensive clothes." Fan Yi casually tapped the table. "The debt's yours to pay, naturally." Lee Si froze. "Oh, I see. You've made up your mind. Ready for a divorce? Fine, but you're walking away with nothing, not even a penny." Fan Yi stood, somehow pulling out a tennis racket from nowhere. She swung it down onto the glass fish tank on the table. With a loud crash, the tank shattered and water spilled everywhere. The fish flopped on the floor, struggling for air, much like Lee Si, caught between shock and fear. Leaping aside, Li Si yelled, "You're crazy. Want a divorce?"
Fine.
No house, no money, nothing. Fan Yi smirked. Of course. This fish tank was mine, right? Don't worry, I'm not taking it with me. She swung the racket again, this time at a floor lamp in the corner. The lamp toppled with a loud crash. Li Si, now completely panicked, shouted, "Stop. You lunatic. If you divorce me, you'll never see a cent of that million." Ignoring him, Fan Yi beckoned to a few workers who had just entered. Folding her arms, she ordered, "The wallpaper. I put that up myself. Tear it down." Li Si screamed, "Don't touch it. You're insane. If you walk away, that million's staying with me." Fan Yi glanced at one of the workers hesitating before starting to peel the wallpaper. She replied coldly, "Then let's take it to court. Let's see how you explain gambling, mistresses, and stock trading with borrowed money." Fan Yi left the courthouse feeling an indescribable sense of freedom. She had walked away with nothing, free of both the marriage and most of the debt. The court had ruled that only 100,000 yuan of the debt was for marital expenses. The rest, which Li Si had squandered, was his responsibility. For Fanny, 100,000 was just a few months' salary. Why had I been so obsessed with a house and a city man? She wondered. Why couldn't I let go of a rotten marriage and start over? There's no ready-made shelter in this world that costs you nothing. Everything has a price. And some prices, she realized, were too steep to pay. As she walked away, she vaguely remembered a crimson shop front and a woman named Xiao Qi. But the memory was hazy, like a half-forgotten dream. She never saw the pawn shop of desires again, nor did she remember much about it. Only one thing was certain. She had found her courage.